always acknowledge our great sponsors, so we give it that thanks to Rollins, and it's the Center for Advanced Entrepreneurship. They always have great activities that are going on with that educational bend, so we want to make sure that you guys know about that. Secondly, it's Barney's Winter Park. Make sure you send them Barney's Winter Park love. Yes?
I wanted to just ask, what is the deal between Barney's Winter Park and
They're owned separately.
Okay, that's what I was
Separate
trying to
owners.
ask. So.
And Barney's Fashion Square, well, they are not the sponsor. So make sure that you come over and you support Barney's Winter Park. Yeah, that's why. Good question. Secondly, TWI for our business cards, and then of course Bright House. We love Bright House with all of the great press that they're giving 1 million cups and sending people our way. We have a lot of also community support from Canvas and Catalyst Spaces, and then Florida Venture Source. So that is the last one that we have up there, and then we always have our sponsor, our volunteers. So Stephanie, we have Kristen, something down here. Jan, Randall, where's Randall? Randall with Torch Studios, and then myself, and then we're missing someone else, right? Nope. Okay, we're all in the room. This is really nice. So again, thank you very much. Now, we'd like to welcome our second presenter up, and so, would you want to come on? The company is Fluente.
Give it up for Jose!
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
This is loud. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Jose Luis. I'm the founder and lead coach of Fluente. Fluente is a language learning experience that helps English and Spanish learners achieve conversational fluency together. So, I'm going to present two families to you. Here we have the Gomez family, and here we have the Johnson family. The Gomez family, like many Latin Americans who come here to Orlando and to our country, they're hungry to get involved. They're ready to jump into the economy. Many of them are professionals who arrive here and they maybe have learned a little bit of English back home, but when they get here, they're realizing that they're not as fluent as they need to be. So the first thing that they do is they jump into the first language class they can find. There they are, surrounded by their peers, with one teacher trying their best to acquire as much language as they can. And when I was growing up, I remember watching on Univision with my grandmother, Inglés sin Barreras. Lots of different programs and audio tapes, CDs, tapes. There's so much packaging there. They weren't thinking about the environment at that time. And of course, like many of us, I'm a father, you try to talk to your kids. Some of our kids are more fluent, but as you're having that conversation with your kids, you realize that they just can't stop picking up their phone. You spend time, you spend money, you invest in trying to acquire this skill because it's life and death for many immigrants who come here if they can't integrate with the language. But let's go talk to the Johnson family. The Johnson family, like many of us who were brought up in the US, we too want to learn a new language. Almost all of us have a second language on our bucket list. And many of us have taken some sort of foreign language, most likely Spanish, in high school or college. So we take courses. We take our classes, we go to whether it's college, whether it's AP Spanish in high school. We also invest in applications. I don't know how many people own Rosetta Stone. Rosetta Stone is actually the #1 seller is Spanish. And like many of us, we buy it and we invest the time, but we also get kind of busy. And for those of us who have the means, we'll travel. Spend some time in Latin America, spend some time going to immersing ourselves in the language. But sometimes we find ourselves coming back here and we're at the supermarket trying to spark a conversation and we still feel a little stuck. Well, what if I told you that the Gomez family and the Johnson family, that they lived here? That they're neighbors? That they walk by each other every day, working, thinking, and developing this skill, but they never once turn to each other and say, "Hola, ¿cómo estás?" or spark a conversation. The #1 way to build conversational fluency is consistent practice with native speakers. #1. And it takes at least a good, consistent 100 hours of consistent conversation and or learning for one to achieve at least one level up in conversation. And so while we're spending time on our apps, spending time traveling, spending time trying to talk to folks, we're finding ourselves stuck. And that paralysis is what's holding us back. Fluente wants to solve that. And so Fluente, our vision and what our belief is the reason why people are stuck is not so much that they don't have the skill, is that they're held back by the emotional and social barriers that we exist amongst us. Let's face it, folks, our communities are segregated still. And they're segregated by language. And so even though we're neighbors and our communities are changing every day, and we're still working on this still, we don't turn towards each other. Fluente does that. So Fluente, we bring English and Spanish learners together to a face-to-face conversation. We build a community where people can come in and exchange their native language as an asset for support in their new language. Fluente is a fun experience. We're not sitting in a classroom, there's no homework, you're just coming in to have a good time. It's dynamic. We're having authentic conversations, not ¿Dónde está la biblioteca? Or where is the bathroom? Where we only focus on transactional learning, when really if you want to build deep comfort in a new language, you gotta get into the culture. You gotta get into the comfort of engagement. That's what Fluente does. And Fluente has basically started in October 2014. I came up with this idea working at the Hope Community Center in Apopka. If you know the famous nuns of Apopka, I worked with them. And there I was trying to figure out how to make our ESL program better. And as I'm there, I'm realizing, while I'm doing that, my wife is dragging me to these Zumba classes at LA Fitness. And there I am dancing around, probably the only dude in the class. But I'm noticing something. Everyone is having such a good time. And they're dancing around doing something very difficult. But because they're in community, they're having a great time. So I said, what if we brought together a sense of community and fun to language exchange? And what if we could build the Zumba of language learning, which is what I'm working on. And so to give you a little bit of a perspective of how we start, this is sort of our funnel. We start off by what's called the Open Program. At the Open Program, we partner with local libraries and universities and different cafes. We have a partnership with the Buenaventura Lakes Library in Osceola and Kissimmee right now, where they sponsor us to bring once a week language exchange experience to the library. We also work with local coffee shops like Downtown Credo, who we've been partnering with for several months to bring local language exchange experiences to people in College Park and throughout Orlando. So these events are free, but they're sponsored and paid for by organizations and or different local sponsors. This gets them in the door, this gets them comfortable. From there, and this is sort of one of our recent events that we had, people are just coming in and deeply engaging. From there, we then invite people to become members. We like to think that we want to kind of take the Planet Fitness strategy, if you will, of membership. So we offer a low-cost membership of $12 a month. Very accessible, but because you're a member now, you now have access to membership experiences and events and classes, but you're part of the club, you're part of the community, the Fluente community. And so we also, from here, we now are moving people to an actual paid course. This is currently our course. We just launched this last week. It's our Fluente Journey course. It's a 7-week immersion in conversation. Folks will meet twice a week and have authentic, real conversations. And the whole goal is that over the course of those 7 weeks, you're getting deep practice in conversation, both producing and also getting feedback. But at the same time, you're building friendships. And the hope is that at the end of those 7 weeks, you have a new tribe of folks that you can continue practicing on for a lifetime. And that's the key. And to do that, we're producing that through these kinds of exchange experiences. And then the last piece is to become a Fluente coach. And this is the heart and soul of our program. We, similar to Zumba, what we're doing is basically creating a coaching training system where individuals who are fluently bilingual or people who come up through our program can be certified and licensed as a coach of Fluente. From there, they can then access and provide their program, their skill, whether that's at the local schools or libraries, or even start their own small business. Similar to Zumba or CrossFit, where you basically give them all the tools and you can set up wherever you go. Think of like we're basically building exercise and fitness, but for your language. And so that's what Fluente is doing. And to be honest with you, our impact has multiple levels. Number one, we want to build the best conversational fluency experience money can buy. We want to become virally popular throughout, not only in Florida, but throughout the country. But the second thing we want to do is that by building this, we're also building new bridges in our community. The most powerful thing for me was being in downtown Kissimmee, watching Dallin Jones, a man from Alabama, who wanted to learn Spanish because, well, face it, he wanted to meet a Spanish partner. And there he is, sitting face to face with Ruth, a Peruvian elderly woman who wants to better her English so she can speak to her grandkids. Now, Dallin and Ruth never would have ever connected if it wasn't for Fluente. Imagine that at scale. What kind of impact not only can Fluente have on bettering people's skill, but what kind of a more united and engaged community we can have here in Orlando and beyond. And so my question and my invitation to you is this. I got the vehicle. I got the passion. I want to get this program ready for investors that can invest and build a social enterprise that can go to scale. And that's what I hope to navigate with you. And like I tell all my folks in my program, I ask you to be fearless and spark a conversation. So join me. Join me in this conversation, and let's become Fluente together. Thank you.
So we're opening up for questions. Okay, we'll come over here.
Thank you. This was very interesting to me. I look like a Johnson, but I married a Gomez. My wife's a first-generation immigrant from Colombia, and she's a professor of Spanish here at Rollins College.
Wonderful.
I heard you talk about your goal, your vision, and then at the end you talked a little bit about getting ready for investors. I'm on the venture side. To me, this sounds like a B Corp, like a great social mission.
Absolutely.
It doesn't sound something where profits are at the forefront. Is that a correct assessment? There's nothing wrong with that, but I just want to make sure I have the right assessment.
So I have 10 years of nonprofit experience. I'm a community organizer by trade. So in the development of this, it's been almost in its DNA that social impact is at the forefront of what we want to do. And our larger vision is to really see all over in major cities across the country, building these communities of practice that could become an asset to the local language learning system. So I'm not trying to replace, for example, Valencia or UCF or Rollins' language program, but rather provide them with what they can't do themselves sometimes, which is building that exchange. Now, on the profit side, this can become very profitable. And where I see the profit opportunity here is in a couple of ways. Number one, the membership model that we have, where it becomes a very low bar, and we're testing this in summer. We're going to test out this $12 a month membership. We just had an event at Cafe Fluente last week on Thursday. We had 40 people show up, brand new, loved it. I offered them the $200 course, and at first they were kind of like, eek, that feels like a little bit of steep jump in. But I know that if I would have said, come and become a member for $12 after the experience they had, I'm in. So we see that we can build a funnel, build a base of that at least can make it sustainable to hire the amount of coaches that we need to be able to run this. But the real strategy around this is going to be a licensing and a coaching model similar to CrossFit. So what we want to do is we want to build Fluente in a box, where you as a fluent bilingual individual, maybe the YMCA, maybe a congregation or a church, anywhere where there is this intersection of language exchange, can opt in, get trained and licensed to offer Fluente however they want. So that's one other vehicle. And the third vehicle we see is by building this sort of tribe, we potentially can have an opportunity to offer more services and products and experiences to this very connected network because they have a shared culture. And Fluente, when I yell Somos, everyone yells Fluente. And we build this sense of core in the community, and it helps really help people lose their fear. So I'm ambitiously hopeful that I can build the business model to a point where it can become profitable and investor ready, but social impact is at the source of it. So it is in that kind of dance in some ways. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chandra.
Hey, Chandra.
I'm wondering how big, I have a few questions. How big is your team?
Yeah.
Do you have like co-founders and?
So I'm the founder. This is sort of a big part of my brainchild. I have a team of 5. And so, you know, like many small businesses, I hired my sister. She's a 10% investor. I gave her that gift in Christmas. And so my sister runs our operational and logistical planning. And then I have 2 other coaches who are fluently bilingual who manage and run our Cassini classes. And then I do the curriculum development and marketing and pitching. So we currently have a team of 5. We're all volunteers into the startup. We haven't cut any penny from this project yet. And then our vision is to really then build out the infrastructure that can allow us to sort of generate economies of scale. So we can build and generate content, develop and grow the marketing of this, and then really build that tribe of coaches that can then drive this work.
Okay. And then the other question was, how do you monitor growth at this point without, I guess, like a downloads or signups or something like that?
Great question. So we definitely have, every event that we do, obviously there's a basic level of attendance and checking in, and so we have that system set up for our programs and our events. Growth is something that I'm very excited about figuring out, both on the learner level, how am I growing? How am I advancing?
Right.
A lot of the hard part about language learning is that similar to weight loss or anything like that, it's a lifelong process. And so people want the 1 week fix. They want I can do it in 3 months, 90 days, and you can get this whole program. So there are studies that show that if you have consistent learning at about 100 hours, you can level up one level. So one of the things that we want to develop, and we're also looking for developers on the app side, is develop an app that allows us to do some form of easy way of tracking people's number of hours and or times that they're meeting, so they can start seeing themselves say, well, I've had 100, my goal was to practice 5 hours of conversation this week, and so I have a way of tracking them. The second thing we want to do is we believe that part of what Fluente is trying to do is also help people conquer their fear. So part of conquering your fear is how many conversations can you spark? So we have this idea around building an app or building some tools where we basically track sparks. So if I go to the bodega and I have a conversation with someone, I can just press a button. And so we're looking to see how we can create things like that down the road. But at the same time, what we're finding is that by building a community of trust, the conversations that we have are very authentic. They're very much, let's talk about our families, let's talk about our lives, let's share stories. What ends up happening is that people come back. And so they find themselves, fulfilling a sense of loneliness or sense of disconnection that sometimes we have. And that in some ways also builds the kind of community that hopefully gives people results. We are currently working with UCF to develop some tests and studies to monitor the growth of our program in comparison to traditional language learning too. Okay, thanks.
Question here?
Yes.
Are you familiar with the new Cuban fast food chain, Zaza?
Am I familiar? I'm like one of their lead customers, brother. And that's like, yeah, man. All in. Are we going to that later?
Maybe, yes.
Come on.
I was there yesterday, but I was so impressed
Yeah.
with their personality
Yeah.
and their service. I just was curious.
Thank you. Well, actually, speaking of Cubans, that's my, you can probably tell that's my descent. My parents are Cuban. And part of what brings me to this was really being the bilingual child in my home. See, my parents, they arrived here with a lot of dreams and ambition to try to make it in this country, but they've been in service jobs most of their lives because they couldn't go over the hump of language. And so I was always the interpreter for my family and really building that bridge. And so in some ways, this is sort of a manifestation of that very experience. Go for it.
And to follow up, I tell a lot of the young students today that if you can master Spanish, that is the equivalent of a master's degree. Because when you go to apply for a job, they're getting 2 for 1. So I've known people that applied for jobs much younger when I was in CIS, and she went in and they said, oh, you speak Spanish. She went to the head of the line, and it makes a huge difference, and that needs to be sold as such.
Absolutely. One of the challenges that are inherent within our company, and I'll be transparent about that, is that we're marketing to 2 tribes. On one hand, the immigrant market is very clear. I need ESL, I need it now. That's why they fill up those classes. We have wait lists right now in some of the adult ed learning around these. They can't even find spaces. To the Spanish learning market, it's more in the want category, not so much as a need. But there's a lot of work to do around educating that market and letting them know, hey, you've had this Spanish in your back pocket. How do you get it out there? And my grandfather always used to say, is that when he's kind of said that when you have 2 languages, you value for 2 people. That's how he used to say. So yeah, thank you for your question, your comment.
One question?
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Just in my humble opinion, I would say that churches would probably be a gold mine.
Absolutely.
Because they're already social based.
Yep.
They're already, you have immigrants coming into the country, and where do they go? They go to where their faith is, because that's where they're going to get the most help and so forth. So I think that's a gold mine. And the other thing is schools, universities, especially those with deep pockets, like UCF, for example, broad, not necessarily deep, but and maybe even licensing your model to schools or anybody else for that matter.
I'm in 100% agreement. If you look at my notebook, this is like churches and universities, and these kinds of partnerships are exactly where I'm headed. Congregations are a powerful idea because so many congregations are now offering English and Spanish services. If you go to a congregation right now that offers that, what you find is that in the parking lot, the English service is leaving and the Spanish service is leaving, and they're all like, hola. You know what I mean? And there's this awkwardness, even though they share the same faith and share the same, roof of their church. So we see Fluente as an opportunity. For the direct consumer, it's, hey, I'm going to better my fluency, I'm going to go there. But for organizations and companies, Fluente can become a community builder, a team builder. We'd love to even partner with some companies and corporations. Right now, for example, a company like Tupperware, who's based in Kissimmee, they currently offer Rosetta Stone to all of their staff. But what if, similar to how now they offer a yoga instructor who comes in, they have a Fluente instructor who comes in and is able to build community around that? We think that the value of bringing people around authentic conversation, usually people won't come together around just that, but they'll come together to practice a skill, and if the result builds connection, we think that we can also help grow value there.
Yeah, the corporate route would be an excellent idea. What about other languages?
So we are with English and Spanish right now, and part of that is because of the sheer dominance of those two languages within the marketplace. We are interested in exploring Portuguese and Creole, and particularly given our context here in Florida. One other sort of side version of the Fluente that we're looking at, because there's pure language exchange, but there's also a huge demand in Hispanics, but also Brazilians who are coming in, Haitians who are coming in, other language groups. So we also have this, Fluente can also work in a conversation partner model, where we basically bring people who want to learn English, but they also have other languages, and so they can help with the fluency. The magic comes in when we find someone who wants to learn Haitian Creole or Portuguese come together with someone who is learning English, because there the bond really transcends.
I'm just going to share a couple of observations though too. I know that one time when I was working on a business plan, it said by 2020 that the language in America nationally was going to be Spanish. That would be the predominant language, and English would be secondary, just because of the amount of Spanish population that immigrates in, the size of the families, a number of factors that weigh in there. So it has real value for everybody to be able to learn two languages. Secondly, I know that there is a Chinese school here in Orlando, and they actually work out of the 9th grade center for Winter Park. And so if you add Chinese to it, that would really help, because I know Winter Park High School also teaches Chinese there. I've had a number of exchange students live with me, and so I see such value with what it is that you're bringing to the market.
Well, I appreciate the comment, and I think this is why I also am not shy to say that I think there's a global impact version of Fluente that can transcend and grow just from being a community model. Because the basic nuts and bolts of Fluente, as far as what's in the sauce, is we bring questions. We use PowerPoint, you come in, and there's questions. So questions can always be translated into multiple languages. And all the learning happens in partnership. So I tell my students, they're teachers and they're students of their language. So I don't come in as a professional language teacher. That's also a dynamic that happens in sort of anybody who's an educator here. Once they see, okay, that's the professional, then they fully focus on the teacher and they don't focus inward or towards each other. So I really believe that there's legs to this. For example, anywhere there's a community where there's multilingualism happening, Fluente could work, because there's always going to be a desire for people to want to learn the local language. And for me, rather than getting on a plane and going to Ecuador or going somewhere else to become immersed, you can get immersed by going to BVL with me in Kissimmee in Spanish, and someone could become immersed in English by coming here to Winter Park. And in some ways, I like to think of it as there's a sort of a larger mission of really building community integration. So whatever languages are in that mix, Fluente could really come in and build something down the road.
Yeah, I'm a Bridges, born to a Sanchez.
Okay.
And I take advantage of the Tuesday 2-for-1 at Zaza. But
you gotta get them as a sponsor to this thing. Come on, it'll grow the participant. We'll house.
Sponsor here. He's
right
George
on.
Studios. So
love Zaza's
videos. Yeah.
They're doing something right. But and I'm just speaking from where I'm at, my world. I have a close to 3-year-old, and on the drive to his daycare today, I was pointing out cars, the sky, the sun, and teaching him the words in Spanish.
Correct.
I think daycare could be one area to look at. I don't know, Fluente Light or something, just something to think about.
So I want to say from a business strategy perspective, I definitely see that as another element. I want to let you know real clearly, you know, we're focusing on like the bread and butter, sort of what's the source, what's the core. So that's why adult learners in English and Spanish and English it's a strategic choice. A, you have markets. B, adults have income to invest. And so we're working there. But we believe that as this becomes, if we get to that point where we show real traction, where we're able to show good margins, I do see opportunities for this. I got people on our Fluente Facebook page all the time saying, my kids are in a bilingual school, but they're not talking. I've had parents come with their kids to Fluente, which is by the way totally cool. People bring their kids, and the kids go in a circle and have conversations. So Fluente has an opportunity for that kind of exchange to happen, but I definitely see opportunities in that market down the road.
Question here?
Yes?
Are you familiar with Business Networking International, BNI?
No, I'm not.
That business model is very similar, and they do like meetings out of a box, and they have chapters throughout the country. So I think that you should take a look at their business model, because I think it's something that's going to help you in regards to how to form the business plan for you, to be able to take this national.
Thank you.
And globally, because they are a global organization as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Hey, question here. I'm also Spanish is actually my first language. And I usually find myself. Muy bien, gracias.
Qué bueno. Vamos a hacer eso en español. Disculpa todo el mundo. No, I'm sorry. Go for it.
So, the thing is, I usually find myself explaining to my friends. They'll ask like, "How do I say this? How do I, like pronounce or whatever?" I give them tips or whatnot. So I was seeing like in the Fluente meetings, like people then gather for both Spanish and English sides. How does it work? Do they like help each other out, or do you have like an instructor telling them like, oh, he wants to know if you say this is how you say it. How exactly does it go about?
So when I first started Fluente, I started researching globally. How are people doing language exchange? That was the first thought. We bring people together across language. And so what I noticed is that most language exchange across the world happens at a bar. Everyone gets a couple of drinks, they put on a little flag pin, and they go and they talk about whatever they're going to talk about. So my initial thought to that was that for the brave, that's awesome. But for the most people who are a little shy and uncomfortable, they need structure. So what we do is we have a facilitator model. So we facilitate the exchange. People come in and immediately they get a name tag. And we don't use language, we use colors. So if you are blue, you're learning Spanish. If you're yellow, you're learning English. And so you get a name tag, blue and yellows. And so basically I was like, how are my blues? ¿Cómo están mis amarillos? And that's the way we sort of work in the crowd. There are a couple of group dynamics that we do to kind of warm up. But then we get people into pairs, and we have a thing called la licuadora, which is like a mixer. We get people in an inner circle and an outer circle. And then one of the things about understanding about language is that fluency and accuracy are two systems in your brain, and they don't work at the same time. So that's why if you're ever practicing a language and you're trying to say it, and all of a sudden you get interrupted, no, it's like this. No, it's like this. Your brain's already fried. You can't work. So what we do is we allow for flow to happen for a couple of minutes, and the facilitator rings a bell or says switch, and then you get feedback from your partner. And then the same question happens in reverse. Now we're going to have another conversation for 2 minutes, then we're going to feedback into partner. And then the thing that I do with our paid program, go to another partner, do the same response in 15 seconds. So now you have to process. So what you're doing there is you're actually working the muscle. I will say the only downside to Fluente from a health perspective is that you leave sometimes with a little bit of a headache. And that is actually a good sign. Similar to a good workout where your body and your muscle is strained, so does your mind. So that's how we structure it and that's how we facilitate it. But we very much, if I was having a conversation with you and we were stuck, usually, profe, you go to the teacher, and what I do is I use this hand signal where I go like this. And what I'm doing there is pushing them to teach each other. If they're stuck, then I help. If I'm stuck, then we go to Google. So. Thank you for the question. Yes.
Right here. Just want to say I love your presentation.
Hey,
I think there's such a great need for this, especially in Florida, with the influx of Latin Americans coming into this country, especially within the next 5 years. I think the census data states that it's like 80% Latin American, especially Puerto Rican coming here to Florida, Central Florida. I'm marrying a Gomez as well.
I tell you, this is my second time doing this presentation, and I use that Gomez, and I always get someone in the crowd. I'm married to a Gomez. They do research me. I'm like, no, I'm not that good.
I'm trying to teach myself Spanish right now as well.
Excellent.
I'm in the real estate business as well, so that's going to go hand in hand.
Very important.
It's very fluent. Just want to say, as a suggestion to your business model, if you would integrate this, I think it's very important to learn a practical skill is accountability, for one. I mean, to integrate that into actually having, and you probably have mentioned this, somewhat of a coach, someone that can actually give you a daily call a day to say, are you coming to class today? Or are you doing, are you learning 15, 20 minutes today of that certain language of Spanish, so on and so forth. So if you haven't integrated that already, I stress that.
So actually it's really cool. So, a sneak peek into what we're doing. The Fluente Open experience is, everybody comes in and just kind of exchange for a little while. It's a more basic opportunity, but it allows us to give it for free because it requires very little upkeep. Another benefit of Fluente is that we have very little overhead. All of our overhead is basically because we partner with cafes, libraries, and locations and congregations, for example, who offer the space, offer the coffee, and they want these folks to come in. So it allows us to grow the business really well. On the point of accountability, this is where we want people to opt in to take an immersion course. And our course that we structured right now, we're basically bringing people together twice a week to have conversation with one another. But they're going to have a coach that's assigned to them. And every day they're going to get what any CrossFitters in the room or anyone ever done CrossFit, where it's like they have the workout of the day, the WOD, or we're going to have the flow of the day, right? And so a little daily dose of like, what's the flow of the day? What's the conversation to spark today? And using WhatsApp, which is another social tool, and using Duolingo, we're going to integrate technology so that people can have daily practice while they're also doing conversation. And so we're using right now that strategy for our courses. So it's a little bit more engaged, more involved, requires a little bit more investment. But that's where we sort of see the opportunity for folks like yourself. It's like, hey, I'm a professional. I got to get this goal done. The immersion course is a great choice to do this. And all of our classes happen in a cafe setting and in a social setting. So it's not in a classroom where you're sort of dictated to. You're really kind of in an immersive experience. Thank you for your question.
Okay, so no more questions for now. The last question that we always ask is, what can we do today as a community to help you?
So the most immediate thing, and I wouldn't be a good entrepreneur if I wasn't selling something. We've got this course, and and you may want to jump in on this. This course starts April 23rd. It's a Saturday. We're going to have an orientation on Saturday, but it meets Mondays and Thursday nights. It's going to be meeting at Downtown Credo in College Park. I don't know if you ever had a cup of coffee there. If you haven't, go check them out. They're awesome. But we're going to be using the whole space, 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock at night, twice a week. But then you're going to be partnered with someone who has some sort of matching set of interests like you, so that you can continue the conversation offline. And then we're going to continue to build that way. So that's the first thing, is to share this thing. The second thing is, I know there's a lot of investors in the room and or business professionals who have many more years of experience than I do. I want to get this business to hit that nail on the head when it comes to the business model and it becoming ready for investors. I could have started a nonprofit. I could have. I have the experience. I've started many. I'm purposely trying to move into enterprise for myself, for my family, because I really believe this could be something bigger than that. And so I need coaching and support to get this model so that when investors hear it, they say, that makes sense, that has FOMO, I don't want to miss out on that. So that would be my 2 requests. Join my course, and if you got some support or ideas or advice, I welcome it.
Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank
you
you
so much, Jose. So we're going to be here for about 30 more minutes, maybe 45. The entrepreneurs are here to network, to get to know the business community. Please walk up to them, introduce yourselves, any kind of connections that you can bring to the table, they're happy and grateful to have. As presenters with 1 Million Cups, entrepreneurs in the room, you do have a passport program.
Like we said, we're in 90 cities. We are only the host here in Orlando. There's 5 other locations in Florida. So use us as a platform. You can travel the country all the way from Alaska down to Puerto Rico, and you can pitch. So let us know. And follow us on Twitter, follow us on our website, make sure you're getting our emails, and also our Facebook page. Thank you guys. Have a good Wednesday.